Kāti kia ora tātou. Kei taku pāpā te ururua tēnā koe. I o kupurongo mai whiti I whai wāhi ai, e whai wāhi nei, te wāhi ngaro ki tā tātou kaupapa. Tēnei ka mihi kia koe taku pāpā tēnā koe kei te mihi o tira. E kui mai koro mā tēnā koutou. Kei oku mātua keke, kei oku whae keke tēnei kua tau nei. Tēnei ka mihi kia koutou te huarahi takahia rā e koutou. Hei mātakitaki māku. E mōhio ai a hauhiaha no te aha. Tēnei ka mihi kia koutou o tira. Kei taku reanga. Taino atu ki a tātou tamari ki moko puna. E whakarongo ana ki te reo e rerere haere nei. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. E ai ki te kōrero. Ka kuru tohi ake rā, taku manu whititua ki te kōtihi whakaharahara o makatiti e tū mahutara. Te tūpare hua o te wai kaukau kōratara te kia nei kō ka taina. Te kōroto moana I kata ai a te rangi takaroro. Taku kirikawa mauto ki parāwa I te para kākāriki o tua o nehe o tā ukiuki. Ka hāro iho te rere ki ngā whatukura, ki ngā wiri, ki ngā rua nuku. O taku whare makate o Maninihau rātau e heke nei ngā ki te kōkōwai o ngā toroirangi ihore ariki o te waka o te arawa. Ka tau iho te rere ki taku whenua kura o te koutu ki te tutunga o te hina wanawa I te wai ara tauma. Whakaumatia te poho ki ngā whaumatarau aweko, o te tārai waka, o te hahau whare whakairo, o te tātai kura tōtara. Kau tēnei ko te uri o te moana kōratara te whakahua nei te pepeha, ko makatiti te maunga, ko ka taina te moana, ko te arawa te waka, ko Ngāti Tarawhai te iwi, ko Ngāti Hinimihi te hapu, ko te paparere a rātoru, a rā ko Hinimihi te marae, ko au tēnei, ko Anaha Hiini, e mihi ake nei kia kūteo tira kia tātou. I roto I te pūwāhurutanga o tō tātou whare tēnei manaki nei tiaki nei tā tātou kaupapa tēnā kūtau kei te mihi. Nō reira kia ora tātou. Ka reo rua te karawhiunga I te pōnei te whānau. Tuatahi ake te wāhi ki tērā kōrero. My wife wrote that kōrero. I do the Maori and she does the English. So me mihi ka tika taku wahine I te tāhu o tērā reo Pākehā. Kore take taku reo Pākehā. E pai ake kia kōrero hia e au te reo Māori. Hewano. Karakia Māori e te whānau. It's written with a lowercase m. Uppercase, okay, that talks about the race, the Māori people, the English people, the Chinese, the French, ka pai capital M. Pūriki, lowercase, talks about natural, native, authentic karakia. Ka pai. And, one thing that I love doing at te whānau was having Wānanga. Had a Wānanga with my good friend from up north. His name's Stephen Wikaira. And sometimes we send an invitation out. We sent an invitation out to ChatGPT to help us with one of our Wānanga. And taku pāpa nei a te ururua, just spoke about Google. ChatGPT is like Google on steroids, okay? So I pātai hia te tehi pātai, ia māua tahi ko taku hoa, e Wānanga ana I te tehi kaupapa. And please forgive me te whānau, he kore take aku karu. Sometimes I have to stand like this to read what I've written. But the question is, if a man was granted 1,000 years to live a solitary life within the natural environment, e toru ngā pātai, what type of life would he live? What would his belief system be? And what language would he speak? 1,000 years e te whānau with no one else around but the environment. What type of life would he live? Okay, his life would be a cyclical, ritualistic and responsive. Free from human time structures, his rhythm would align with seasonal changes, such as gathering food in the summer, sheltering in the winter. Ecological relationships, watching predator-prey cycles, plant growth, weather patterns, just to name a few. Daily sensory rituals, tracking stars, swimming, fire making, observing tides, just to name a few. Emotionally, he might drift between ecstatic wonder and crippling loneliness, especially over the centuries. His inner life would become incredibly rich, filled with memory, dreams, hallucinations, and self-made narratives. What would his belief system be? Over time, without societal input or doctrine, his belief system would likely emerge from direct engagement with the natural world. It would be animistic, rooted in the perception that trees, rivers, animals, stars, even wind and shadow carry presence or spirit. He might develop a sacred reverence for recurring patterns, sunrise, seasons, tides, storms. His sense of divine would be experiential rather than theological, a spirituality of observation. He may form rituals or practices to mark significant phenomena, e.g. migration of birds, flowering of certain trees, not for others but to anchor meaning in his long solitary life. Over centuries, this belief system would deepen into myth, populated by forces he gives names to, perhaps voices of ancestors, invented deities, or metaphors from his dreams. Would he believe in a God? He might, but not in the way that most societies conceive of God. Living for 1,000 years in total solitude, surrounded only by the elements, his concept of God would likely arise not from the doctrine or revelation, but from intimacy with the natural world. He might not say God at all, but he might experience something vast, aware, and alive in the wind that bends trees, in the storm that shakes the earth, in the silence between birdsong. Over time, he might begin to believe that something listens when he speaks aloud to the sea or to the stars. He might believe that patterns and meanings emerge not by chance, but through a deeper will or presence. He might believe that he is not alone, even though no other human is near. He might also believe this God would not be a person with rules or a face. It might be the spirit of the land, the pulse of time, or even a reflection of his own internal consciousness. In essence, his God would be woven into the natural world, immanent, mysterious, sometimes terrifying, sometimes comforting. He may not believe in God in a traditional sense, but he would almost certainly feel something godlike. What language would he speak? Over hundreds of years without other speakers, his language will be shaped by the sounds of the forest or sea, the rhythms of his body, and his inner voice. He might create new words for phenomena that language once overlooked, particular wind types, emotional states, or symbolic dreams. His speech might emerge from sound mimicry, bird calls, wind, animal cries, and gradually coalesce into a system of meaning he could use internally and with the world, a language of solitude. The last question was, what language of today would be close to what he might speak? He would likely share traits of indigenous, oral, and highly ecological languages. These languages often reflect a deep relationship between the speaker and the land, where words are embedded with nature, action, and spirit. The number one language that came up, ladies and gentlemen, Te Reo Māori. The second language that came up is a native indigenous language from Mexico. Number 3, a Greenlandic. And the last one is the Ainu from Japan. So number 1, ko Te Reo Māori. Right, some aspects of these particular language is metaphor, personification of nature. Okay, very poetic, just to name a few, ladies and gentlemen. E toru ngā wāhanga o tēnei kauhau e te whānau. Tuatahi ake, Karakia Māori, and Tohunga. Tēnei mea te atua Māori, ngā atua Māori rānei. And then ngā karakia o tua a moro ki noa nei. So we're going to have a look at Karakia Māori and also some Tohunga. Tohunga that were born in the 1700s right through to Tohunga of today. We're going to have a little look into Atua Māori and then Karakia from way back in the day and how we're using it today te whānau. So tēnei mea te tohunga. He aha tēnei mea te tohunga. So in centuries gone by, ladies and gentlemen, karakia was actually for everyone. Ka pai, the hierarchy would be ariki, rangatira and tohunga, bearing in mind that tohunga goes many different ways, depending on the particular mahi that you were doing. If you were an expert at that mahi, you were known as a tohunga whakairo, tohunga raranga, tohunga karakia, tohunga this, tohunga that. So it was quite general, the word tohunga, but it depended what department you were in back in the day. Ariki, rangatira, tohunga, tutuwa, kuia, koroua, wahine, tāne, tamariki, right down to taurekareka, everyone did karakia te whānau. And I think he pōhehe nui I riro ke nā te tāne anake ngā karakia. Okay, so that was a big pōhehe of today, that only men do karakia. Everyone did karakia. Okay? And we have particular karakia back in the day at te whānau that the kids would recite. Tihore mai te rangi, tihore mai, mao, mao, mao te ua, whiti mai te rā. Okay, on a rainy day, ka pai, tamariki of centuries gone by would recite a karakia like that to bring tamanui te rā from behind the clouds to in front of the clouds to shine upon the land so that they could go outside and have a better play. Other types of karakia was making day turn into night, like that of Ngā Toroirangi. As his uncle Tia was traversing the land, claiming it all, okay, he did a karakia to make day turn into night. He passed his uncle and carried on. He took over his job of claiming the land. I don't know if we can do that today's day and age. Other things like karakia recited to crack a rock or smash it. Karakia mate kanehe, okay, to make a wahine fall in love with a tāne, and maybe even vice versa. Ka pai, instilling Māori and removing Māori from particular things, right through to mahi mākutu. Te manawataki o te karakia. So the research tells us that when we recite things like pātere, there's about 200 syllables in a minute. Karakia Tawhito is a little bit faster, where they reckon it's about 300 syllables within the minute. The manawataki or the rhythm, okay, must be there. As I'm doing karakia, in accordance with what I was taught in the Whare Makatea, under the tutelage of my uncle Poutemara, he says, the rhythm has to sound nice to the Atua's ears. Ka pai? Ka re tino whai take taku ki, mai ea te tupua, mai ea te tawhito, mai ea te kāhui o ngā riki, mai ea tāwhiwhi ki ngā atua. Okay, me whai manawataki. Has to have a rhythm. Ka pai? The vibration from my throat zigzags right through all the different heavenly realms to the particular atua that's been called upon. All right? So that's an example of how one might do a karakia. Others, kia takinara te kawa, o te kawa nui, ko te kawa roa, ko te kawa whakatike, tike iahua mai no tiki o te rangi. Okay, some are loud and blow the roof off. Te pui ko te pū, ko te weu, ko te rito, ko te take, ko te pūkanga, ko te wānanga, ko te taura, ko te tauira. Others would whisper. Tēnei rā, te awhinuku, te awhirangi no te ororo, ngā riki nui o te pō. Okay? Doesn't really matter whether you're loud or whether you whisper. Okay? I've heard people say, hey, can't hear what you're saying. Well, the words aren't for you. These words are for rongo. These words are for tū. These words are for tāne. They're not for you. Ka pai? And the main thing is that there are rhythms there. Ka tahi, ka rua, te tōiriritanga, the vibration. Ka pai? Moving through to the particular realms to get to the ears of the atua. And if it sounds nice, they're going to say, ka pai, me whakarongo ki tēnei Māori nei. All right? So that's an example. And me, I like quite fast, okay? I've since learned that it depends on the kaupapa. You sometimes have to slow it down, okay? But that's my type, okay? Puea i te taketaki ue wenuku ue warangi, tēnei ka hohau ki runga ki te tupua ki runga ki te tawhito ki runga ki te kāhui o ngāriki, ki aputara e nei tau e ragi te vai au ki te ao mārama, whano hara mai te toki haumi e hui e tā iki e. Ka pai? So kia tiro he tātou e te hi tohunga no tua whakarere rāno. These tohunga are from Te Arawa e te whānau, and the first one that I like to talk about is Te Unuaho, and he resided on Te Motutapua Tinirau. So this fellow would have been born in the 1700s, lived through to the 1800s, okay? And he was situated on a particular part of Te Motutapua Tinirau, a secluded area away from all the normal people, I should say. And he got word. He got word that the bishop of the missionary faith was wanting a meeting with him. Ko tana ingoa, ko Pihopa George Augustus Selwyn. All right? And he was very happy about the meeting. Okay, ka tai atu te pihopa nei ki runga o mokoia. And then Te Unuaho grabs his hand, shakes his hand, hungis him and does a karakia. And he feels very, very uneasy about that. Ka pai, bearing in mind he mihingare. And then he tohunga karakia Māori. Ka pai? So kāre ia I paku rata, ki te karakia I takina rā I te unuaho, I te tūtaki hangātu. So they got into the meeting. He says, why have you come here? Okay, and he had his spiel ready. One of the main parts of his spiel I te whānau was this. Turn from your ways of darkness and believe, for my God is above all your false Māori gods. He alone has power over the sons of men. Te unuaho said to the Pākehā, how do you know I'm not an Atua? All right? See that bird flying up there? I can zap it, fall to the ground, ka mate. See that man walking over there? I can zap him from here, ka hinga, kua mate. And I can do the same to you, Pākehā. That's what he said. And he says, let me put something in place. So if I come back a slide at te whānau, you can see a tīkauka. He had a tīkauka which was situated outside of his house. And he says, tēnei tīkauka e tūnei, this cabbage tree that is standing here right now, I'm going to kill it. All right? Before your very eyes, I'm going to kill it. If you can do the opposite and bring it back to life, I'm all yours. Ka pai? He starts his karakia. He does all of his karakia. Slowly but surely, the bishop saw the tree stoop over. Those beautiful green leaves, they turned grey right before his eyes. Ka pai, haumie huie taege, ara, whakaorangia. That's what he said. Pākehā just turned, got back on his dinghy, rode away, and that was it. And he goes, yeah, you better take off or I'll do the same to you. And then he said, you know, and then it just came back to life again. So what he did there, te whānau, he did a karakia tango Māori. He took the Māori out of the tree, pretty much killed it, and then he put the Māori back in, we call Whakatōmauri, which I'll talk about very soon. Tree came back to life, and then he just carried on with his day. The Pākehā never ever stepped foot again. This Pākehā, I should say, never ever went back. He heard how powerful te unuaho was. Okay, he saw and knew and heard how influential he was, so he wanted him to go over to the missionary faith. Ka pai? So koera te mana nui o te karakia. Tēnei wiri nei, okay, ko tū mākoha, heke nei a ngātoro, heke nei a tarawhai, heke tanui o kia aia. So this fellow here was the very last tohunga of our very last whare Wānanga known as Maninihau. Maninihau stood at Okataina, ka pai? And he was the very last tohunga, ruanuku I should say. So you have tohunga and you have ruanuku. Ruanuku are the big bosses. Ka pai? Those are the dons. And then in time, of course, Maninihau starts rotting away. They had a desire to uplift it and take it to Ruato, but of course it got a little bit too rotten, so I think they just put it to sleep. So tū mākoha te whanapipi, you can see, hey, they look different. Hey, wāhua, kua ahua refa ngā karu, you can see that he's looking right through you. You can see that he can communicate ki te wāhi ngaro, ki te ao wairua, eh? You can see it in his face, eh? And the story is that when Hongi Hika and Co came through the Rotoiti area, okay, everyone knew about him. Hongi Hika sends his two best warriors. He goes, fellas, go down the road there to Okataina. I want this fella's head. Ka pai. So they shoot down to Okataina. And they see tū mākoha te whanapipi on that side of the lake. So they jump on a waka and they paddle over to where they thought he was. When they got there, they had a look. Oh, he's over on that side of the lake. Ka pai. So they paddle again, a second time. They get to that side of the lake and then he's over there. Third time that they paddled, he started doing a karakia, ka kare haere te wai. And the waka nearly capsized and killed them. They said, bugger this, way off. So they went back to the main road. Okay, Hongi Hika says, kai hia tūpoko te wiri nei. He says, nā kāri te tuki ia māua. And he says, you fellas are lucky that you're my two best warriors, otherwise it'd be your fellas' heads. Anyway, ko tū mākoha te whanapipi tēnei. Ko tana taina, ko tū hoto ariki. Come down one of the same lines, and then it breaks off down here. Tū hoto ariki. Ko moi hoki tātou ki ngā kōrero mōna, mo tū hoto ariki ko ia tērā ko te tohunga i te pakarutanga mai o Tarawera. All right? And yeah, very interesting character, this fellow as well. I won't spend too much time on him, but he tohunga mananui ia. Te piki ko tuku te whare o te riri. All right? Nō roto ngā te piki au, ngā te rongo mai anō hoki. And these arrows, they're not whakapapa, they're transfer of Mātauranga. So nā te piki ko tuku ka tuku nei ho tērā Mātauranga kia te kōkau. Nā te kōkau, ka heke iho tērā Mātauranga kia rāwiri. Nā rāwiri kia hikawera, nā hikawera kia pautēmara, nā pautēmara ki te hunga, pēnei a tuki. Pēnei a rangi mātāmu o tira, pēnei a mātau I whai wāhi ai kia pautēmara. Ka pai, rangatira tohunga mana nui, a te piki kōtuku te whare o te riri. And then tēnei koraua ōku, pango ngā wene. So nāna ko puni wāhio, rāua ko hāmuera pango. And that's all the pango lines, eh? Kirikauri, kepe e hau, hini, kepa, manu, ahau. Ka pai? Taku koraua I noho ai I o hinemutu I tana whare e kia nei ko patupai arehi. And the reason behind this picture here is because he had a pūhoro. And while he was sleeping, his sons Puni Wāhio and Hāmuera Pango decided to trace the pūhoro of their father, and then that's now situated on the rafters of Tamate Kapua. But he was also a big-time tohunga in Ohinemutu of Ngāti Whakau and Ngāti Tarawhai descent, and also a student from Maninihau, the last whare Wānanga as well. And going away from the takere, but making our way to the ihu, we've got te rangi tāhau of Ngāti Tūwharetoa. He pretty ruthless, this fella. He was a toa and a tohunga, okay? I'll talk a little bit about him very soon, right through to his death, which is quite interesting. Ngā whare Wānanga e te whānau. Ngā whare Wānanga o tua whakarere pēnei I te whare makatea. Whare makatea is where the tohunga learned karakia. Whare maire is where they learned mākutu. Pai, whare tūtaua, all right, warfare, weaponry. We've got a whare tapere, okay, the performing arts. Whare whakairo, all right, carving, whare pora, raranga, just to name a few of our whare wānanga o tua whakarere. Okay, we also look at whare wānanga in the heavenly realms coming right through to mankind. Okay, mātangi rei, a rangi ātea, tāwhirirangi, whakamoi ariki, whare kura, tangi te wiwini, heke tonu iho ki e neina. Okay, te rā whioro, another popular one. Coming right down to these more modern ones, te panekiri tanga o te reo, e te matapunenga, I whai wāhi ai ahau e te whānau. And I say this in all humility. I was very honoured to be invited by these koroua, Pūte Mara Timoti Kāretu and Te Wharehuia Miroi. I have many teachers all throughout my life, okay? Taku Wahine, she's one of my biggest kaiako. I've got these three men here. I've got another tūhoi man, Iruiti Biru. He's had a huge influence in my life. My tamariki and my mokopuna have been a great influence in my teaching and learning journey, and also my mates. Kaiako in here, my mate Ben Manley, he's taught me a lot over the years. If you teach me one thing, I call you a kaiako, a kapai in my ao, and me mihi au ka tika. I always like to reference, kapai, and cite, and I don't ever say that the Mātauranga's mine. Okay, it's all of ours, I suppose. But I always will tell you where I got that Mātauranga from, and I'm always keen to share the Mātauranga as well. So here, my mindset really started changing at te whānau, and I was looking at a tree differently. I was looking at a river differently, at a rock differently, and I would actually see and feel their Mauri, things like that. Okay, I'd see a bird, and I would also see its Whakapapa. So things like that. These are what these kaumātua did for me. They shaped my mindset. They helped me to understand this thing we call Whakaora Māori, and of course they helped me to spruce up my reo as well. So that was back in 2009 e te whānau. And then a year or two later, Poutemara, being the last of his cohort, still alive, he thought, if I don't hand all of my knowledge regarding karakia tawhito to anyone else, it's going to die with me. So what he did is he went through a list of 12 men who were 12 graduates of Te Panekiretanga o Te Reo, and the likes of us, we were chosen by Poutemara. I'm very, very appreciative, grateful and honoured for that invitation. Okay? Ma mai parao ne gloin, te kuratai o ho kapea, Dr. Te Aro Moxon, Dr. Tātere McLeod, Dr. Korohere Ngāpō, Mr. Mataya Kepa, Dr. Professor Rangi Mātāmua. We've got Kahuro Pata from Ngāti Tōrangatira. We've got Pakake Winiata, noko nei no Ngāti Whakau no Ngāti Raukawa no Hoki. And koia tēnei, ko tā mātou hautapu tuatahi. This is back in 2017. So our mate Paraone, he invited us all up to his mountain. We stayed at his marae for the weekend and we prepared for our very first hautapu back in 2017, celebrating Matariki. From then right through to now, we're just learning more and more and more about Matariki, which I'll talk about very soon at Te Whānau. Okay, Tūki Te Rangi and Scotty, also members of Te Matapunenga. Over half, we're from Te Arawa e Te Whānau. Okay, this is 2022. Yeah, I've already mentioned all their names. And of course, once again, under the tutelage of Supau Te Mara, which I'm very grateful for. So, mā te aha e ki ai he tohunga koe. Okay, how can you say you are tohunga? Pai? Or what gives you the right to say that you are tohunga? I don't even like saying that word. All right? Yeah, I don't like saying, yeah, I'm a tohunga. Pai? But anyway, mā ona pūkenga me tana heinga no hoki ki te kawe ngā mahi tapu ki taumata ke atu. His ability to be able to carry these sacred duties to another level, perhaps. Mā tana heinga ki te kōrero hoki ki te ao Wairua. Ka pai, te tehi taha ona ke nepe he matakite. All right, and I think that's a huge advantage if you are a matakite, because you're doing the mahi and you can see whether you're doing it right. Okay? Mā tana whakapua ki te ingoa o tana whare makatea me te ingoa o tana rua anuku. Ka pai? If you're able to tell me, all right, or mention the whare makatea that you graduated from and your rua anuku, mā reira pēr e ki ai ka pai he tohunga koe, because you've graduated and you've received the tohi rights, ka pai, from your whare Wānanga. Pai? Ka pai te whānei. Te aihua te karakia Tawhito, he reo o kawa, it's a formal language. He reo o karakia, it's a spiritual language. E hara i te inoi, ha pai? E hara i te tono, e hara i te whakapatipati, engari he reo whakahau. So koia tēnei ko te tehi rerekētanga o te karakia Tawhito. So what we do is we command the atua. Ka pai? Even when people say to me, translate atua, I just say atua. Yeah, because he atua, te atua ki au nei. Anyway, he reo tohu. Me pēne, me pēne, me pēne, me pēne. Okay? And kei te mōhio tātou i roto nei, i te hunga i inoi ana. E tō mātou matua nui te rangi tēnā. Manakia mai, tiakina mai mātou i tēnei wākia korei mātou e taka ki te he. Tukuna mai tō wairua tapu ki roto i a mātou ei. He inoi tērā. I te hunga e taki karakia ana he whakahau. Ka pai? So, yeah, they're all commands. There's no inoi, there's no pati in there whatsoever. Kuia tērā ko te tehi rerekētanga e te whānau. He reo i titoa ai i tērā wā tonu. So 300 years ago, that's the koira te ahu o te reo, i roto i te karakia. 600 to 700 years ago, te wāia ngātoro, koira te ahua. And I even think, as things evolve, like the way that we live, the way that we speak, hapai, ngā tikanga, I whai ara e tamate kapua mā, me ngā tikanga e whai nei e tātau i nei. So whanaketanga, te whanaketanga o ngā, o te ahu reo Māori, I should say. When I look at the reo, if we were to even go back 200 years ago, there were no Pākehā living here, I think. Ben might be able to correct me. 1835, ka tai mai Thomas Chapman. But if we go back 200 years, 1825, we've still got another 10 years to go before Chapman gets here. And I reckon that Rotorua would have been as Māori as you can possibly imagine, a Māori place to be. Our lakes would have been so pristine, the rivers flowing, the birds would have been loud, okay, the trees, okay, a lot of forest around here, the geysers, I don't know how many there would have been back in those days, 200 years ago, and the reo would have been as Māori as you can possibly imagine it to be. Maybe to a point where, how I can't even understand what my tūpuna on about. All right, which I'll talk a little bit more about a little bit later. But there, okay, go back another 300 to the time of Whakaue and Rangiuru and co. Go back another 200 to Ngā Tororangi e Tamate Kapua. Were they speaking Māori or were they speaking Tahitian? Hey, koira taku pātai. I haere mai Tahiti. I don't think they were speaking Māori then. I think they came here and slowly but surely it turned into te reo Māori e puta nei taku waha i naene. These are some of the things that I think about in regard to the evolution of our reo. And I even look at a lot of the karakia that are written in books that Ngā Toro was supposed to have recited. And I'm thinking, I can understand a lot of these karakia, but shouldn't it have been the old archaic Tahitian language? Hey, hiu anō, kei te whakaore noi hoa hau i o kūtau hinengaro. Yeah. So koira te ahu o te reo, ko te ahu o te reo o te wā. And you know, I write Karakia Māori instead of Karakia Tawhito. I could write Karakia Tawhito up here. And I think it's the essence of Tawhito that's still in our Karakia today. And I don't think, if I was to, I've composed a lot of Karakia, but I don't think that I would compose them in normal, informal language. All right, it'll always be formal language. It'll always be a spiritual language. And a lot of the essence from Tua Whakarere will be brought right through to 2025 and put into my words. Ka pai? Yeah. Ka mutu he tino tawhito e te hi o ngā kupu. Karakau pēr e kite ana I roto I ngā papa kupu. Okay, a lot of our words in there, we look for them. And we kind of, I think we have to interpret rather than translate, because I don't think I know how to think like how Ngā Toroirangi used to think. Okay, he was on another level, that fellow there. And I asked myself questions e te whānau. Anaha, he haku e kaha whakapono nei ki ngā tua Māori? Ka pai? Anei taku whakautu, karau e whakapono. All right, karau e whakapono he tūturu. He oe e mōhio nei au he tūturu. Ka pai, ka mutu e tāina e au aku atua Māori te kite, te rongo, te pā. Koe nau e mōhio nei he tūturu ngā tua Māori. And believing e te whānau is very different to knowing. When you believe, there's doubt. When you know, there's evidence. Pai, ara mana. Se moho anau ki aku atua Māori. I shouldn't even say aku o tātou atua Māori. And e hara tēnei te preach, ko? I'm not, no, karau te preach e te whānau. Oh, what, Iene? Sorry, I didn't. Okay, anaha. Why do you strongly believe in atua Māori? Taku whakautu, my answer, I don't believe that they are true. However, I know they are true. Furthermore, I am able to see, to hear, and also physically touch my atua Māori, our atua Māori. Ka pai? Maramana? Okay, and of course, growing up anei, te ahu o ngā atua Māori, eh? Fictional characters. Ka pai? Tāwhiri mātea. We've got tāne and rongo, tūmatauenga, tangaroa. And that's how they were perceived, okay, like fictional characters. He wanoa e te whānau, a pōpō, he wanoa tāu he te tiro whakarunga, a rā rangi nui. Ka pai, you can physically see rangi nui. Ka pai, ko ia tēnei ko papa tū ānuku, anei, ko rangi rāo ko papa, ko rangi kai runga ko papa kai raro. And all we have to do is go outside, take our shoes and socks off, put your feet on that dirt, and you've got a connection to papa tū ānuku. You don't have to take your shoes and socks off. You know, you're connected right now to papa tū ānuku. So koe nau e ki nei, this is why I say I can physically see, I can physically hear, and also touch our atua Māori. Ka pai, I reckon, if anything has an effect on your life, on your health, he atua te rā ki au. Ane a tamanu I te rā. Ka pai, ki te ai tātau I a tamanu I te rā, rongo ai tātau I ana hihi. E mahana nei te kiri. Ka pai, he auranga, he atua, ki ahu nei. Tamanu I te rā, he atua e te whānau. Okay, ki e te eko hina, ki e te eko hine marama. All right, her ability and power to be able to pull and push tides, and she also does that with our energy. Ka pai, hina, hine maramara nei, he auranga o roto, he atua. Some of our atua e te whānau, kua kia, he atua matakore. You cannot see them, but you know that they're there. How and why? Because you can see the effect that they're having on particular things. All right? When we feel the wind on our cheek, okay? He oranga o roto I tērā, ia tātou e hāna. When we see the trees swaying, we can't see anything but the trees swaying, so that's the effect that this atua matangaro has. Ka pai, he oranga o roto o tāwhiri mātea, he atua ki ahau. Ia tātou e hiko e haere nei te puihi, ko tāne. Okay? To me, this isn't the god of the forest, this is the forest, ko tāne. Ko wana tamariki, ko ngā rākau, ko ngā manu, ko te aha, ko te aha. As soon as you step foot into the trees, ka pai, akati. Kei roto koe ia tāne. And all the different types of tāne as well that we have. So from the atua right through to our tūpuna, they had what we call monikers. A monika, M-O-N-I-K-E-R, is an addition to your name like Alexander the Great. Koira tana monaka. Okay, we've got tāne nui ārangi, tāne te Wairua, tāne te Wānanga, heke tono iho kia tāne toroka, and also the most common one, tāne mahuta. Okay? Depending on particular attributes, kaupapa that they were involved in, okay, they gained a moniker. Tangaroa, ka pai, go for a dive in the ocean, kei roto ko ia tangaroa. He oranga o roto, he atua. Ka pai? Para whenua mea, te atu o te wai Māori, ko ngā kōroto moana me ngā awa. He oranga o roto, he atua. I te hita aima, ka pukuriri tātou, ko tūmatauenga tēnei kua tau. Alright? That's through anger, debate, argument, physical fighting, whatever, ka pai, ko tūmatauenga tēnei kua tau. And all of his different monikers as well, which I don't need to go through. Right now, i te whānau. Nice peaceful moment, ko rongo tēnei kua tau. Okay? Rongo. As they would say, the God of peace, ka pai, hau nei te atu o te mau ngā rongo. And all the different monikers that go with rongo as well. Some would say tāne nui ārangi, some would say tāne te Wānanga, some would say rua te pūpuke, some would say rua i te pūpuke, he no, te atu o te Mātauranga. And there's others as well that have parts to play in different types of knowledge, okay, under the umbrella of atua o te Mātauranga. Ka pai, and we have in our Wānanga right now, ko tāne te Wānanga tēnei kua tau. Ka pai? All right, as I'm talking to myself, the Māori word for talk to yourself is called murakehu. Nō reira ia aue murakehu ana. Anaha, mā te aha e mōhio ai koe he tūturu ngā tua Māori. I think that same question. E tāia nei e au taku whakapapa te taki i ngā tua Māori. E ki ai he uria hau e heke tōtika nei i a rātou. So if you have an ounce of Māori blood in you, ka pai, you have a direct whakapapa i a tāne, i a tū, i a tangaroa, i a rongo, ka pai, i a wai. And I won't go through all of this whakapapa, engari ka moe arangi i a papa ka puta ko tāne, rā ko tūmatauenga. Nā tāne ko hine ahu one, nā tūmatauenga ko tiki tawhi te wariki. Ka moe te tokorua nei, ka heke iho, tainua kia Māui. Māui tiki tiki a taranga. Pai, ka heke, okay, over here. This is where our te arawa line comes in, te unuhanga. Ka pai, mare reo te rangi te hoehoenga tāne i te kapua rangi ao pūhaurangi. Pūhaurangi o ho mairangi rua muturangi taunga hau tapu maua ki tapu uruika rangi tapu atua matua rakauri ngā toroirangi tangi hia tangi moana kahukura nui tū hoto wariki tū rangi tauira tū kahua tū maihi tū mākoha tarawhai. Ko ngāti tarawhai tēnei tū atu nei. Nā tarawhai ko te rangi takororo, te whanapipi tarawhai a moaka kaipahi mana kua rangi te ohu te rahui anaha te rahui. So we've gone way back to when, right through to about 1820. I whānau mai ai taku great-grandfather anaha te rahui. Okay, nā anaha te rahui, ko e hau anaha. Nā e hau anaha, ko kepa hamuera anaha e hau. Nāna ko hēni, nāna ko kepa, nāna ko mam, nāna ko au, nāku ko taku tamahine, nāna ko taku mokopuna. Okay? So heke tonu iho kia mā kura o te rangi. And I'm going to talk about this different coloured bit very soon e te whānau. And that's from tū and tāne. Ka pai, we have direct descent from tangaroa. Heke tonu iho, okay, ia tangaroa kia ngā toroirangi te tuatahi. And enei whakapapa nei e ahu ana i ngā puka taku koraua a kepe e hau. Alright, me taku hoa Mātene Simon. Tohunga ia ki tēnei mea ki te whakapapa. Ngā toroirangi, heke tonu iho, ki te tupune kia nei ko te hue a kiwa. Nāna, ka heke tonu iho, ki te pānga, kia tātou nei kia te arawa, taunga hau tapu, maua ki tapu uruikarangi tapu atua matua rakauri, ngā toroirangi, and all the way down that same whakapapa that I recited, down to tarawhai, down to anaha te rahui, and then down to mai mokopuna mā kura o te rangi. Now, if we have a look at those whakapapa e te whānau, okay, that humongous chunk of white, ka pai, and then it changes colour over here. So that humongous chunk of white is when our tupuna were pure, Māori, untouched, authentic. Ka rea anō I mōhio ki te Pākehā. All right? And we're coming over here, okay, we're coming over here to these fellas, Pākehā had came here, but kāre no te Pākehā I noho I konei. So this is 1700s, okay? My tupuna te rāhui, he was born in the 1700s. Anaha te rāhui. The writings tell us in the court minutes that he was born. Kāre rātou I mōhio ai, they didn't know I was born on the 18th of May, 17. They didn't know that. Engari, I whānau mai ahau I te pakanga, o mea kia mea. I whānau mai ahau I te kōkiritanga, o te arawa, e hongi hika. And that was the account that he made, is that he was born he was a baby when Makoia got attacked by hongi hika. So we kind of think that he was born around 1820-ish. Yeah, one says he was born, one says he was a baby when Makoia was attacked. So there, te whānau, 1820, still another 15 years until the Pākehā come here to Rotorua. All right? So he was born pure, I should say. Okay? And then when he's a teenager, about 15 years later, ka tai pēnei mai te Pākehā. Okay? Ka whakatūhia ia wana mihana, te tehi ki te koutu, te tehi ki Mokoia, te tehi ki te ngai. Okay? So that's when Thomas Chapman established his mission stations, and then he started doing his thing. Ka pai? So what this means is that Anaha was born pure, ka tahi ka paru haere te āhua o te noho o taku whānau. Okay? So anei te colonization e te whānau. Not saying it's a bad thing, but this is when things started to change with the reo, the way that our tupuna thought, te āhua o ngā tikanga. All right, a lot of tikanga changed over the years because of the Pākehā and their demands. And they were going around our pā sites, Hurinoi Rotorua, and they saying, under the command of Queen Victoria, you are now to do this, this, and this, stop doing this, this, and that. But if you don't conform, akati, we're going to deal to you fellas. So that's what they were doing. So a lot of our tikanga, yes, the Pākehā have been doing that to us for a long time, changing our tikanga on our own space. Eh? So koenei te paru haeretanga o ngā whakaaro. Pai, huge chunk of white, pure. Then we have this little chunk here of 200 years, ka pai, 180 to 200 years of colonization. So hau nei, and I just talk about myself, I whānau paru mai. And that's not in a bad way, it just I whānau colonised mai. Okay? And then there came a time in my life where I thought, oh hell, I'm starting to understand a little bit more about myself as a Māori, ka pai. And I started to make some changes, where it came to a time where I had to make a change and go full Karakia Māori, Atua Māori, all right, and actually leave my taha katorika ki te taha. So, hei āpiti atu ki te kōrero nei te whānau I tupu katorika ahau. Okay, so I iri ahau, I was baptised at St. Michael's Church. I was pretty staunch. Yeah, I went to church every week. Reconciliation on the Thursday. Tell the priest that I lied to my nene koro, or whatever, or that I chewed some gum during mass, or whatever. And church on either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Whichever one I couldn't make, I went to the other one. And I was there to support one of my nans as well. She was pretty staunch to the church as well. So there came a time in my life I was doing ake āmine and haumie hui tāike. I was learning kōrero about this side and then hearing other kōrero on this side, and I was thinking, something's not matching. Okay, it's clashing. And I thought, well, kei te kōrero ahau te reo Māori, e kaharanga nei ahau I ngā tikanga, kei te ako ahau I aku tātai whakapapa, I'm doing all this Māori stuff, all right? I'm also saying haumie hui e tāike, and one thing only on this side pretty much, because I started not going to church and all of that, and I thought, it's either one or the other. And I decided with aroha to go this way, haumie hui e tāike atua Māori. And the beautiful thing about that is that when I made that decision e te whānau, I moi aku karu, and I had a dream. I went towards this whare, the door opened, all my tupuna and our atua were in there, and they says, not so much what took you so long, but ka pai. Ko tai mai koe, welcome, nau mai ki tō ao Māori. Yeah, and I thought that was a beautiful dream that night. Yeah. So anyway, I whānau paru mai kātahi ka tīmata te whakamāharetanga o aku whakaaro. And then with my tamariki e te whānau, as they were all born, I've tried to give them a nice, beautiful Māori upbringing where hopefully they are mā again. And then my mokopuna, I should have done that grey. And then a lighter grey then a lighter grey until it actually got ma, okay? So that huge chunk of white, pure, authentic, ka pai, native, Māori, untouched, little chunk of paru, and now we're getting back into the cleaning it up again, okay? Yeah. Yeah, you know, tairawa mai te Pākehā, te mihingare, nā reira I tīmata I te huri haeretanga o ngā whakaaro o tātou tūpuna, okay? E ko te pātai, hara tēnei te tohi, he Wānanga tēnei, me nā ai rānei, he Māori, he Kraitiana rānei o tātou marae me a tātou whakahaerenga. Hey, and kia hau nei, this is our final bastion, to be able to be as Māori as we possibly can. Okay, it's our final abode, our final bastion, it's our final space. And iau e kororo ana mōku anō, all right, when I do karakia tawhito, I know my tūpuna going, hei te mārama hau ki a koe. Koira te reo I rongo wai ahau. Koira te reo e mōhio nei ahau. Kei te rongo ahau I rā kupu. All right, that's just me, me te whānau. I know that my tūpuna are thanking me and saying, kapai mo kopuna. Koira te reo e mōhio nei ahau. Yeah. Hapai, and some of our, a lot of our whare tūpuna, a lot of those particular ancestors were tohunga themselves. Hapai, and I feel that they feel very comfortable with those words. Pātai tuatoru, anaha. He hei mahua I a koe tō taha katorika, kia tahuri tūturu ai ki ngā atua Māori. I think I've already explained that e te whānau. Yeah. And he kōrero, he whakamāramatanga, e hāngai pū ana ki a tātou. So, why did you leave your taha katorika behind and just focus solely on Atua Māori? Karakia tawhito. And here at Te Whānau, it states that, there's an explanation and a story that pertains solely to us. Ka pai, ka moe arangi ia papa ka puta ko mea heke tonu iho kia anaha tēnei tu atu nei. Okay, we have our own narrative. And ko te tehi waku pātai, ki etehi e pātai mai ana, is that we have a narrative, okay, which I'm following, and you might be following a narrative from no tērā tahara no te ao, okay, and koe rā noiho tāku, okay, ko pātai mai wetehi aku hoa. And and it makes them think, hey, yeah, true, we do have our own narrative. But tērā e te whānau, yeah. Ki te, e hāngai pūtonu atu ana ki a tātou ki te iwi Māori, e pātai hia nei te pātai he hau e whai nei I te kōrero, me te whakamāramatanga no tērā tahara no te ao. All right? So yeah, koira te hiu o ngā pātai. He pātai tēnei ko pātai hia mai. Ka pai, hei whakautu māku. Wetehi o ngā kaupapa e te whānau no tua whakarere, e kawea tonu hia nei te 2025. We've got Tohi. Tohi is the dedication rites. Okay? Whānau rawa mai he tamaiti tāne. Well, every father wanted their child to be a warrior back in the day, so ka tohia ki atu. Te tehi o ngā tikanga I roto nei kua rangona, I roto I ngā wānanga e te whānau, that some babies were tohied after birth, some were tohied as soon as they could turn over, okay, from stomach to back, from back to stomach. Ka pai? And when that happened, they knew ka pai, kia rite ki te tohi tēnei pepe. Ko ngā mea wāhine I tohia kia hine te iwa. Okay, when I do tohi, this day and age, there's about 4 atua that I bring in. Tū Mātauranga. Ka pai. Ahakua tāne, ahakua wahine ko tū Mātauranga. Ka pai. Mo te māia. Okay? Mo te māia, mo te tohe, mo te āhenga ki te whawhai, e kia tūpakari. Ka pai, ko tū. Rongo. Ka pai. Humility. Ngā kau whakaiti. Ngā kau māhaki. Tāne te Wānanga. Ka pai, mo te Mātauranga te take. And so who's that? So it's tū, rongo, tāne, and also hine te iwa, te taha wahine. Ka pai? Yeah, and this is one of my favourite. I've got a couple of favourites. Tohi is one. Ka pai, and you do that in a river, at a lake. You could probably do it at the ocean. Ka pai? And it's done before the sun rises, okay? And it's a beautiful ritual. Ka pai? And koera te hurihanga ki tō tātou ao Māori. Tāngakawa. Tāngakawa e te whānau is the opening of a house. Been doing it for centuries, tatui honei ki te 2025, okay? Whakatōmauri is the installation of a life force and ethos into not just houses, but also taonga. Ka pai, rākauriri atu, taiaha, tefa, all of our taonga, okay? And if something is living, well, e ai ki te kōrero Whakaora he Māori tōna. A lot of things we think are just things are actually living organisms. Ka pai? A lot of people would see just the rock. I see Whakapapa. I see a Whakapapa. I think, where have you been? Where did you come from? Ka pai? A prawa. I think, where have you swum? Where have you come from? Where did you beach? Okay? Pounamu. How long were you down the Arahura if you came from the Arahura? Ka pai? Things like that, eh? And I can go on about these things e te whānau. Tango Māori, pēnei I te mahi a te unuaho, how we took the Māori out of that tīkauka. Whakamoi Māori is putting things like our whare to sleep, which we only just did a couple of weeks ago with our Whare Hiini to have a look at some of the carvings, and then we woke her up again. By me, personally, when I whakamoi Māori, especially a house, I'll do that at night, because we go to sleep at night. And then I'll whakaohoi te Māori te ata. Pai? Kind of makes sense to me. Whakaora tūroro, all right? Whakaora tūroro, karakia whakaora tūroro e te whānau, not karakia to help you get over your flu, ka pai, he mate Māori e nei. Ka pai? Mate Māori. Maybe makutu, maybe other things that the Pākehā medicine can't fix. Been involved in a lot of that e te whānau. Tuku I te Wairua, hea tāhua tēnei, te tuku I te Wairua o te tangata. And depends on where that person is from. There's a particular avenue that their Wairua will follow. And different tohunga from different rohe know all the different spiritual pathways to send the Wairua. Okay? And e te hitaima karekau te tangata I te mōhio kua mate, no reira kakaro re haere, ka pōhe he kai te ora tonu. Okay? And mā te kawa tuku I te Wairua, tērā Wairua e rere ki te wāhe tika ana ki a haere. E tanu Kōiwi, tangihanga tērā. Hey, Hahu Kōiwi, sorry, no macron on that. Hahu Kōiwi. Been involved in a couple of those e te whānau. They're interesting. They're quite beautiful, actually. Whakawātea tapu and also Rāhui. Those are very popular. And then the last one is Matariki, which we've been getting into very lately at te whānau.
Te Hahu.
Te aha?
Marama mai te Hahu.
Te
mea lo. Hahu.
Oh, Hahu, sorry. Exhumations. Ka pai? Yeah, exhumations. Did my first one in 2017. That was neat. Yeah, that was neat as. Ka pai? Okay, so tanu Kōiwi, burying bones, exhuming bones, uplifting tapu that has been bestowed upon any place, and which is the Rāhui actually. So that's just the opposite of the Rāhui. And then Matariki. Te kāhui whetū, ne? Kei te pai? Yep. So Tāngakawa e te whānau, very popular ritual. We go back to the 1900s e te whānau. We've got an old illustration of Rauru. Rauru's over in Tiamani, apai, in Hamburg. And this house actually stood in Whakarewarewa. Back in 1800s it got carved. 1900, March 1900, Yep, Poutu Te Rangi. That's when it was opened. Ko te rangi tāhau, so the whakahua that you saw before, the Ngāti Tūwhare toa Tohunga, ko ia te tehi o ngā Tohunga. Taira wāke ia ki whakarewarewa, he thought that he was the only Tohunga. And then Tumutara Pio turns up from Ngāti Awa. And he goes, kei te haku I konei? Kua riro māku ngā karaki. He goes, kāo, kua au ke te Tohunga. So they hated each other, eh? Yeah, because rangi tāhau was better than him, and then Tumutara Pio was better than him. So, I reira ka tīmata te whawhai. Apai? So this was an actual ritual e te whānau. You'd see a lot of ladders on roofs. Apai? And that was for the Tāngakawa. So, piking ia ai te tuanu o te whare, all right, e te Tohunga, he would make his way to the kōruru or the teko to be higher and closer ki ngā tuanui o te pō. Apai te tehi wāhanga o te karakia. Down here in the fire, there's a kumara in there. Right? And then the iwi. So this is an actual illustration back in Whakarewarewa. The three tohunga whakairo that were there was Anaha te Rāhui, Tēnei Waitere, and Neke Kapua. Ka pai, so they were the ones, I think, that they would have finished it off. Yeah? So anyway, these two are doing their karakia. While te rangi tāhau's up on the kōruru o te whare e te whānau, you've got Tumutara Pio. and his lips are going to town, and the iwi is going, oh, how, what's happening here? His lips are going to town. Apai? Actually, yeah, no, I think that's the rangitahi. Well, it's one of them anyway. Might be Tumutara Pio. Yeah, anyway, the lips are going to town, and he's doing his makutu on the other one, eh? And so in the end, te whānau, in the end, i te tuki tonu te kaupapa. Apai? But on his way back to te teko, Tumutara Pio dies. Apai? Ka mate te kaumātuara. 8 days later, te rangitahau dies. They makutu each other. They killed each other off. Huira te mana o te karakia, eh? You know, we're going back to the 90s, okay? And this is one of our most recent whare e te whānau. Tērā i te hipātai. Ko i te ingoa tēnei whare, ko ihinga. Mō wai tēnei whare, mō ngāti mea, mō ngāti mea, mō ngāti mea. You ask who's the name of the whare and a part of the karakia, and then you ask who's the whare for. Apai? And then it'll mention the iwi. And some of you may have been at this Tāngakawa, okay? It actually started about 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? Because the whole marae was being opened, not just one whare. One whare, you probably do it about, you know, it all depends on sunrise. Actually, te hinatore mai, te tākirihanga mai o te rā. Okay, so because the whole complex was being opened, the waharoa, the paipai, the gardens, the whare tupuna, the toilets at the back as well. So me personally, I don't take karakia tawhito into toilets. The wharekai was open and also the marae. So yeah, that's why it started at 3 in the morning. Tēnei was a restoration, te Pauakani marae. It had been burnt and we'd been called there to put the Mauri to sleep and also to reawaken it again. Some whare Pākehā, te whare Wānanga o Awanuiarangi. This was beautiful, this one here. And sometimes you have to be pragmatic and practical because the place is so big, you think, do we have enough karakia to actually get through this humongous place? Sometimes 2 levels, sometimes 3, sometimes 4, okay? You see some more examples of more levels. And so we have to come up with a bit of a plan while we're doing our karakia. One of the best things was the kumara that was cooking on the fire. They were actually seasoned kumara chips, they were yum. And they'll buy a chef in all his white gears and his hat. Yeah, no, it was neat, sizzling away while we're doing our karakia. Hey, teihana prihi mana, okay? Te ao mo whakaruru. So, our ruanuku of this morning was Mauriora, and I kora hoki a te ururoa. And yeah, every policeman and their dog was there, so I don't know who was manning the streets at that hour of the morning. But you can see, how many levels there, Uncle? Was there 2 or 3? Yeah, see, 3 levels. Huge place, okay? So the likes of myself, Matthias, Scotty, Tuki, Matua te ururoa, Mauriora no hoki, he mea no? Yeah, he no, yeah, Atahua. Hey, it's supposed to be all done in the, you know, in dark, but you got the sensor lights that were coming on and then turning off. Hey, yeah, and you're going into every single room and blessing all the rooms. You know, go in there and there's one with all the guns. I don't know, is there a gun room there, Uncle? No, somewhere. Yeah, ka pai. Anyway, yeah, hea tāhua tēnei ate te whānau. Te puna whai aura, okay? So ihinga's over here, and then that's the nursing block right there. Myself, Uncle Ken Kennedy, Hone Tarawhiti, and koi atu, I think it might be Mātou Tokotoru. Anyway, the one on that side, te tāhuhuroa o ihinga, ka pai, that was opened by Scotty and Pūroto, and Ken Kennedy as well. Yeah, pai, you know, a tāhua ngā whare Pākehā nei, harai te mea, he whare tupuna anake. Alright? Murupara Area School, yep. Farmlands, yeah, koro te poroa was the kaumātua. A kāti kia pātai hia te pātai, ko i te ingoa tēnei whare, ko farmlands, hey. Kawai, mōwai, hey, mōwai tēnei whare, mō ngā kai pāmu. Hey. But i pai, you know, I thought, tēnei tari Pākehā, e tono mai ana ki te Māori, kia whakatuwhera hia te whare, kia whakatōhia hoki te tehi Wairua Māori. I thought, he a tāhua tērā. Hey, so yeah, that was neat, that one there. Yeah, Whakatōmauri e te whānau. So as we bring life to our taonga, we bring life to our whare. Hey, we bring life to everything. Life principle, ethos. just to name a few things. Ko te pātai e mea nei, mā te Māori o te whare ka aha. So we're going around our whare, and we're kei te bless, haere, rukutia, rukutia, rukutia ngā paupau o te whare nei e tēnā, rukutia ki au kia mau, rukutia ngā tukutuku o tēnei whare nei e tēnā, rukutia ki au, rukutia kia mau, rukutia ngā kōwhaiwhai, ngā pau o tēnei whare tēnā, rukutia, te papa, ngā pātū, te tuanui, kei te ruruku koe i ngā wāhanga katoa o te whare. And mā reira, because I think that, kua tū te rākau i te ngahere. All right? And then kia topea te rākau, kua hatia tana Māori. All right? Does it still have a Māori if it's been fouled? Then it gets taken to the mill and planed. Then it gets dropped off to te puia, NZ Maki, and then they start whacking away at it and making it into a beautiful carving. And perhaps they call it tamatikapua. And then it gets put onto the wall at a particular whare. And so from the forest, it has a Māori. When it's felled, does it still have a Māori? Have you just killed the Māori of that tree? Then you take it to the mill to get planed. Does that beautifully planed piece of wood, timber, have a Māori? Gets taken to NZ Maki. Does it have a Māori? When it's dropped off there, then you start carving away and you make it into beautiful carving and name a tamatikapua. Does it have a Māori then? All right? Or is it right through to the actual Tāngakawa and Whakatōmauri when you rukuti ia tēnei paupau e tūpane nei tēnā rukutia kia hu, rukutia kia mau. All right? When you start whakatō i te Māori, is that when it gets a Māori? Maybe not its original one, but another Māori to bring all those kōrero back to life. All those tuku, all those kōwhaiwhai, it gives it essence, okay? It gives it life, brings those kōrero. Ka whakaora anō i rā kōrero. Hapai? Yeah, so koira te tikanga o tā tātou whakatō i te Māori. Right through to our taonga that we wear around our necks, okay? All right, you get someone to whakatō i te Māori to bring all of these kōrero to life that the Tohunga whakairo has put into your taonga. Yeah. Ki te kore whakatōngia te tehi Māori ka hatia. So I've heard of particular marae te whānau that never got a Tāngakawa. Pai, very desolate. Pai, hasn't been a kaupapa there since the 80s. Yeah, things like that. They don't even have tangihanga there. They don't even have an AGM there or anything. And then kua whai wāhia hau ki te heo e rā marae, ki te whakatō i te Māori, ki te tā i te kawa, next minute kaupapa after kaupapa every weekend. So I think maybe there's something there when you don't actually follow the proper procedures of Tāngakawa and Whakatōmauri that your marae, kare anō kia ora, hey, kare anō rānei kia oho. Yeah, so koe e te hi mea. And it's hard to talk about the spiritual side of things. Nā te mea kai te ora tonu tātou, eh? We kind of guess, we try and figure out what's happening in te wāhi ngaro. And the only ones that really, really know about te wāhi ngaro are those that are there. Hey, so, yeah. I te hi taime e te whānau, we instill the Māori into a rock, okay, into pieces of wood, taonga, into pounamu, onewa, whatever, and then we place it in the whare. Hapai? And if we go back to ihinga e te whānau, ka pai, anei I mua I te timatanga o te hanga mai o te whare, ne korohiko. So korohiko, okay, the Māori was put into a kanuka or a manuka. And where he is at the moment, that's te paipai, okay? That's the mahau. Paipai hu mai tawhiti. Korohare, over here, a kuarapeta, I koneina. So anei ngā kaimahi o wairiki politic, I te rawa. Yeah, ka pai. So, so there's the karakia where the tohunga is called, okay, before the shovel even goes into the dirt, kua takina te karakia. E tae ai e ngā kaihanga a rātou mahi te tīmata. All right? So lovely these photos here of korohiko and ko, doing the karakia, doing the proper procedures that were done, years ago. Te whakatō I te Māori. And then the Tāngakawa happens after that once the house is complete. Yeah. Tohi, mai anō te tohi. These are the dedication rites. Okay? Te tohinga o Māui tiki a taranga. Te tohinga o tū tānekai. Apai? Te tohi a tū. So this goes back way, centuries back, where you would get, if you graduated from the whare tū taua, he tohi. Ka pai, before you went to war, he tohi. When you came back, ka pai, another karakia was performed, and you were made tapu before you went out to battle. and you were no longer a father, a brother, a husband, a grandfather, you were a disciple of two. Nothing else mattered. You had one, ko tahi ana ke te aronga rā, ko te upoko o te huariki. Apai? And then when you came back, you were karakia again, and then ki reira tū anō ai, hei pāpa, hei koraua, hei tuakana taina tū ngāne aharane, ne? So yeah, right through to ngā tohi o nāia nei, which, as aforementioned, one of my favourite kaupapa, taking people to their own waters and doing the tohi on them, dedicating them to our atua, where they, a lot of them feel much more Māori, once that happens. Beautiful kaupapa, ka ara te rā, he rā hou tēnei kua tau ki runga ki te rā tamaiti. Okay? Yeah. And one of our most popular kaupapa e te whānau that a lot of us have been getting into and learning a little bit more and more and more each year, right through to myself. I know more about Matariki today than I did yesterday, and I'll know a little bit more tomorrow. So tēnei mea te ako e korera wei mutu e. This is back in 2022, and this is when Jacinda signed off Matariki Day, the very first Indigenous holiday inserted into the Gregorian calendar ever. Apai, there's no other Indigenous holiday, public holiday. Ko mātou tēnei pōneke, we were out on the balcony at Te Papa, right out there is Matariki. So that was beautiful, nerve-wracking to say the least. Okay? E harai te mahi māmai, tēnei mea te taki karakia. And then i te 2023, ka tū ki rungo ngongo taha. All right, but a controversy here. How high? E ono ngā tāne, e ono ngā wāhine. So we had some wāhine coming. Hey, so there's a big Wānanga there, eh? But e ka waiho te rā Wānanga, ki korā. And once again, i te tuki tonu i te kaupapa, i a tāhua ki a hau nei. And tēnei mea te Mātauranga Māori e te whānau. And my mate I was talking about before, Devon, he's getting right into his taha Māori now, Atua Māori, Karakia Tawhito. And he's thinking, we're so caught up in these Pākehā constructs, this Pākehā system, e nei tikanga Pākehā, puta i te pātai, he Māori rānei tātou, he Pākehā rānei tātou, he wano. And we go to kura, we learn about the maths and everything else, apai, and nei ke te Mātauranga Māori, all right? Koe nei te Mātauranga Māori te whānau. And my mate was asking just today, we live at the moana, which is beautiful, and then my daughter goes to school to learn about the moana, when she can just stay home and learn about the moana. Anei, tēnei mea te Mātauranga Māori e te whānau. Ahau nei, Matariki versus Christmas and 1st of Jan. Mātou ko taku whānau kāre whai te krihimete, kāre whai te tahi o hānuere, kāre whai te aranga. Ko mātou noiho tēnei e hoi nei tō mātou waka. And, our Christmas and our 1st of Jan is all in Matariki. Other kaupapa that we will acknowledge is our birthdays and the wedding anniversary. Hey, uncle? Better do that one. But, ia tātou e ātau rangahau ana, ia tātou anō, ia tātou e ako tonu nei, ia tātou e āta, I think as we're trying to pull off all the layers of the onion to get right through to the core, right at the core is our Māoritanga. Hey, and the layers that cover us is, te whakapākehā haeretanga o tātou, colonization, I should say. But anyway, anei te koro a te kaumātua nei Aristotle, nāna i ki, kia mutu te ako kua mutu koe. When you're finished learning, you're finished. Okay, so when you're finished, you're dead. E mohio nei tātou e kore rawa tēnei mea te ako e mutu, kia mate rāno tātou, mā reire ki ai e ahau, a anaha akati kua mutu tēnei mea te ako ki a koe. Apai? Heo no? Kua rahi e nei pahu a koe te whānau e mihi ana ki a koutou, e whakarongo pīkarikari mai ana. Te tūmanako i aku koutou i te tehi mea hou. I hope you fellas learned one new thing tonight. And kua hau tēnei katoa e nei kōrero, i ahu noa ai i ngā tau wharenga o taku ngā kaupātuki, hei whakarongo mā koutou, hei whakaaro ake mā koutou, hei whakaoreore hoki i te hinengaro. But if you fellas have any pātai, feel free to ask some pātai, and if you don't, ka tukuna no te rākau ki taku pāpā ki a te ururu ani. Waiti.
Anō i te mihi ki a koe. You are very so generous with your kōrero. Your pātai tāku, Te katoa, te kōrero, the tauira of Tohunga o Tāne, and I wondered if you knew of any wahine, Tohunga wahine, or because te katoa o te matapunenga he Tāne. So just wondering if there was any kōrero that you know of, or why we don't have examples of
Ka pai.
Tohunga wahine.
So we call te matapunenga. And Poutemara sits us down at one of our Wānanga. Ka huri, and ka tukuna te pātai. Me tana tino hia, kia whakatūhia te tehi kāhui tohunga wahine, e kia nei ko te matapui hoiho. Alright, so we're matapunenga and he wants to establish matapui hoiho. O koutou whakaaro, ka pai, go. Kao, ai, kao, e kore rawa, kao, ai. Hey, and so, yeah, it was to see what our whakaaro were. And I think a lot of those kao might have been the colonised mind who think only a tāne is a tohunga. Hapai? And, we talk about equality as well. And not gonna ruffle any feathers or anything. And karau mo te tohe. But with me, in te ao Māori, there's always a balance. If there's ao, there's pō. If there's rangi, there's papa. If there's ora, there's mate. If there's ātāhua, there's wiri. Hapai? If there's wera, there's makariri. There's always a balance. And when we talk about things like, well, if we've got tāne doing whai kōrero, we should have wāhine doing whai kōrero as well. Hapai? And my balance is, mā ngā tāne te whai kōrero, mā ngā wāhine te karanga. There's the balance right there. So we have our waka, and I'm getting to your answer. I just always have a big story, okay? So when we're on our waka, we've got ngā tāne whai kōrero on, and then ngā wāhine peke mai ana ki tēnei taha, and then ka tiko ki te waka, ka huri. Hey, so that for me creates a little bit of an imbalance. And once again, he ara noi ho tēnei te whakatū puihu, but it's just my whakaaro Māori doing its thing. And we go right back to your tupuna kuia ki aroa, he tohunga. And that's why I said yes. I said, ai, taku kuia ki aroa, te wahine a ngātoro irangi, he tohunga. She used to, according to some kōrero, she used to help ngātoro and some of the mahi that he would do. So she's one of the first way back tohunga wahine that I know. I mean, in accordance with some of the kōrero. And you've got many stories that's been told where because the tohunga and the tāne were gone from the pā, there were particular rituals that had to be sorted, and where Karakia had a part to play. And, you even go into Waikare moana. And ka ngaro atu te tohunga, ngā toa whawhai, hokira wāki ki te pā. One of the kuia, I think her name was Hinepito. This is a story nā te wharehuia tēnei kōrero. And she goes, e koro, whānau mai te pepe, ia koutou e ngaro nei, and I had to do the tohi. And he says, I pēhea, pai, I te tuki rānei, ai, kei te pai te pepe, ai, a kāti kua ia. All right, so, that's, he kōrero tērā no roto Waikare moana, but there's many more stories as well. So, maybe if there was a tohunga tāne, there had to be a tohunga wahine for that balance, perhaps. And, so I think through colonization, a lot of research that I've gone through, I saw that, because with tikanga is another one of I love, my main kaupapa is we te reo, te whānau, te reo Māori, okay? And understanding why we speak the way that we do, if we're making mistakes, where there's those mistakes, and how can I fix them up, and all the grammatical side of things. So I'm very passionate about grammar. Same passion for grammar I have for tikanga and kawa, okay? Same for that one I have for Karakia, Tawhito and Atua Māori. And with tikanga we know it evolves, okay? And there's always a reason as to why we do particular things in a Māori context anyway. And coming back to the Karakia Tawhito, trying to figure out where I'm going with this now, and I do this a lot. Anyway, hoki anō ki tērā hui, kua hau te tehi, and toko iti noi ho mātau I whakai ki tērā pātai, mēnā e whakai ana te wahine, and e whakaiti ana te wahine, and we go back to matarike e te whānau, because they're female stars, it's only right for the female to taki karakia, hey, ki e rā whetū wāhine. So ko ngā mea tāne, i riro nā mātou, nā ngā tāne, ngā mea wāhine pēnei i a Matariki, i a Tupu Ānuku, i a Waiti, i a Waipunarangi rānei, hiwa i te rangi pohutikawa, nā ngā wāhine ke e rā whetū. All right? And then we did all the male stars and all the rest of them. So, yeah, tino, yeah. So I think it's been gone for a long time, this tohunga wahine thing, through colonization. And coming back to my research, figuring out why males sit on the seats and females on the ground, why we have whakahu of male up the top and whakahu of female down ki ngā rekereke o te tūpāpaku. You know, one of my koro that I found was he whakanui i a rangirao ko papa. Rangirao ko papa. And then another kōrero I only found 3 years ago, it was the Pākehā approached our people and says, me tū teitei ake te tāne i te wahine, a male must be higher than a wahine. It must be more dominant. That's how we roll here. You fellas have to do the same. That's why I think, oh, is that why we sit on chairs in the wahine on the floor? Is that why we put photos on the... Because our photos in days of old were ngā upoko, hey, and they were laid around the tūpāpaku as it's still set in the tūpāpaku position. So the koiranga whakahu o mua. And then nā te Pākehā tonu i ki nā, never mind that one. Fellas can replace those with photos perhaps. Yeah, so yeah, koira te e te ho ngā hua o te rangahau i a tātou tikanga. But yeah, that's a huge discussion, that one, eh? Hey, me whakatū te tehi kāhui wāhine. Hey, but you know, pou te maras all for it. Hey, tēnā koe i tō pātai waiti.
Te kare te tino whaitaki reo engari, kapura mātau ahau. Me āta whakaaro koe ki ko haumari kara i te wao tō Tuku i ngā kare.
Ai. So, me e te whānau, what I learned to do in particular situations is that I kind of put a force field around me and my whānau. I always have to make sure that we're okay. You go into some perhaps dangerous spots where you might take some stuff home to the kids, and I don't ever want that. So I've got my own little tikanga where, you know, ka taku ahau. So you've got karakia and taku. Karakia is structured. Karakia and taku is off the cuff. It's like tene, karakia, tene, impromptu karakia. You know, and you just say things like, e kui mai koro mao te pō, nēn koro tēnā whakarongo mai ki au, ki tā koutou mokopuna i tēnei wā. E koronga tōku, ke tauwhirotia mai ahau, e koutou ki te tāwharau nui, ki te tāwharau roa, ki te tāwharau take. Whakatongia mai te manātua ki te toki au, te toki ai ahau, e nei mahi kei mua tonu i te aroaro i au, e whakatuwera nei tēnei whare, or while I'm doing whatever mahi it is. So, and while I'm doing that, I'll start wrapping myself up in this kind of glad wrap, spiritual glad wrap. And then I'll bring Grace in. And then I'll bring our kids from oldest to youngest with their partners. And then also their tamariki, my four mokopuna. I bring in my 2 Rottweilers and my purebred Clydesdale horse. They come in too. They get wrapped up. All of our assets. Katoa waku motoka, taku motopaika, aku whare, ka tākaia. Okay, I start wrapping everything up. And I continue to ask Nan and Koro and everyone else to manaki mai i ahau. I au e mahi nei tēnei mahi. Ki te taumata teitei e tae nei e au. Yeah. And so that's my little ritual. Yeah, I wrapped myself up, and because I didn't do it one time and I got punished for it. Yeah, and it was about a week out of action. So kua rongo ahau I e rā hua kino o te korenga ōku I tākai I ahau anō. Yeah, I just thought, I was a little bit, to be honest, I was a little bit whakahihi. Yeah, a little bit of a ghost-busting job. Whakapā mai taku hoa. Hare te whare o te ira amutu. Kua raru tāna whare, kei pai, that's us. Okay? I went there, I haere whakahihi atu ahau. Kare au I tākai I ahau, and then I had taken something home with me. But I'm glad it hit me, stayed with me, and it didn't go down to Grace and the kids. Yeah.
Do you have another question? Tina?
Te ngana na koe ki te whakatinana I tētahi atu tangata Atua I te wao for Karakia. Like, do you try and embody any atu or no?
Yeah, what do you mean by embody?
Like...
Become one with, or...
Not quite become one with, but try and take on attributes of an Atua I te wao. You know, if I'm a kaikaranga, I'm trying to embody te rā te Kere atu o there, or whatever. Whatever. Kei te ānei nei.
Yeah, not so much embody, but connect. Yeah, strongly connect to whatever the situation is, and whoever is the atua or the atua, plural nei, that have a part to play in my kaupapa. Yeah, so, and yeah, just the connection really.
O whanua Mātutake. Is it possible to run Christian karakia after karakia Māori?
I think it's possible to do anything. Hey, possible to do anything. And we know that a lot of our marae, he katorika, he Māori, he Kraitiana, he Māori, he Perepeteriana, he Māori, he Ringatu, he Māori, he Rātana, he Māori. And when I'm saying Māori, I mean in karakia Māori. Tāne, our atua Māori. And then the other ones, the Māori part of it is that it's translated into Te Reo Māori. Ka pai? And I think it's possible to do anything. You can do that, and we have done that over the years. Yeah. So koira te, tāku ki tēnā pātai.
Tēnā koutou. Wame, ana. Mihi kāna ki a koe.
Kia ora matua.
Nei, e tūturu ringa tūru mihi ngari a hau. Te tipu ake, tātoke nei mātua, tipuna, rāta katoa ai. E ka rongo, koe te tuka tēne. Hera pātai, ai. O tata ai, ka tuku karakia hei ape manaki, Tohunga, koe te tuka tēne. The absence of karakia would be traumatic for our people. Hey, so, ko tērā mea, e tahi atu wā ka reira māua, e hana mihi. Ka mea tiki au, te so haku. Mihi ngare, tēnei he poiki au. Hey, because it's about the well-being of our people. And many, karakia is not a part of it. Hey, it's not a part of it. Because kita tēnei momo āhua o tō mai e anu, ka mishet. Tautu kora watu.
Tēnā koe.
Questions? Okay, while we're waiting. The Tohunga Suppression Act, 19, whenever it was,
Whitu.
booted our tikanga and our tohunga underground, if not locked them up. We know that to be true. And so there is a view that I've heard that suggests that because of that, many of our people moved our karakia into the night time so that they would not be detected for doing tohunga stuff, which is why we still do that today. In other words, we open our houses in the morning very early before sunrise, and a lot of other tikanga are taking place during the night. The question is it okay to do karakia during the day if they may well have been done during the day back in the back in the day?
Tēnā koe tō pātai. And it's hard to talk about history from centuries gone by, even before, especially before, the orthography came into play, and when they taught our people how to write, of course, and then we've got those accounts that they were written back in the 1800s and whenever, but before that in 1700s, 1600s, he reo kōrero tuku iho. So it's real hard to know whether we open houses in day or, during the night. Atapo, early in the morning, before the sun rose, and even with historical accounts e te whānau, you've got the actual history as it happened, then it's like Chinese whispers, gets told 10 times, next minute you've got a whole different story, or you've got 2 different stories. Come down the timeline, then you get 3, then 5 different stories, where we're at the point where, which is the actual story? The whole 5 of them mightn't even be correct, okay? But we carry on passing those stories down in that history. So, in all honesty, it's hard for us to say whether 300 years ago, yes, they opened houses in the morning. Okay, for me, I think it makes sense to open a house early in the morning. And what we were taught is that the karakia must finish just right on te tākiri hanga, not sunrise. Sunrise is over there, but te tākiri hanga tamanu te rā still down a bit, and it's just the tip of his rays coming up. And that's a bit of a tohu for us as te matapunenga to start wrapping up our karakia. And as the sun rises, ka pai, that represents a new day bestowed upon that whare that's just been opened. A new day that's bestowed upon that tamaiti that's received the tohi rights, okay? And so that makes sense to me, to do a tohi and a Tāngakawa, the launching of a waka, as they progress forth, ki te whai au, ki te ao marama. So it makes sense to do it at that time for me. Other karakia, you can do them any time, any hour of the day. But things like Tāngakawa and Tohi, and even throughout my research, I found out that a lot of the tikanga that we follow today at te whānau, they're no tua whakarere rāno e rā tikanga, right through to how the tū pāpaku was taken off early hours of the morning, only by the tohunga and the pūbearers. Whānau pani stayed, they didn't go to the cave. And that was the last time that the whānau pani saw the face of their loved one. And they farewelled, they let it go. So the tohunga and the kaiamo, or the pūbearers, they took the tū pāpaku to the cave and came back later, ka tahi te iwi ka hākari. So that's likened to how we close the coffin early in the morning. Okay? It's a bit of a branch of that tikanga there. The last time that the face was seen by the whānau pani, and still in the hours of darkness, i te atapo, e whai tonu nei tātou i te rā tikanga. But still, there's a lot of us, close the coffin. 7:30 ka whakakupa ni hia te ka, ka taupokina te kāwhena. And I'm thinking, geez, it's past sunrise, that. But, a lot of us are a little bit kūware towards the history behind how tikanga were established back in the day. So the tikanga has evolved from that to closing the coffin, ko te hia te kōrero e meana, ki te pāngia, te tū pāpaku, e ngā hihi o tamanu i te rā, it stays open for another day and gets closed the next morning. He wano, e te hi kōrero tikanga. So, ko ngā mea e make sense ana ki a hau, kia takina i te atapo, ka takina i te atapo. E te hi atu, so if I wanted to do a karakia on my taonga, I'll do it any time, okay? But those aforementioned kaupapa, it's appropriate for me to do those, just even like, so waking up a house in the morning, like how we wake up, and putting the mauri of a house to sleep, like we go to sleep at night. That makes sense to me as well.
Is there a different vibration during those times?
I think, the time might have a bit of an effect, especially, during night time, where, at times you can feel that something's taking over and your kupu are just flowing, You're flowing and you got a bit of a rock going on like this, and then you get to your karakia and you're thinking, how? I said some... Oh, right, that went okay, that one there. And I think that the time does have a part to play, but at the end of the day, what is time? That's a Pākehā construct, Hawhi pahi te iwa, hauwha ki te rua, all of those. The way that our people told time was by the part of the day, and they just looked at the sun to see where it was positioned. Ata, ahi ahi, pō. And but I think from a spiritual perspective that, our atua were coming on the kaupapa anyway, depending, no matter what the time is. But I think personally for myself, in dark, with a fire is beautiful to have, because there's something about a fire. So those are aspects of what helps me to, get through my kaupapa.
Ka whati te karakia, ka hati.
Well,
karakia flow breaks.
Yeah.
And you stop. You miss a beat or you miss a line, what do you do?
So, ki te hoki kōmuri tātou ki ngā rautau, and we talk about hapa. There's hapa, there's whati, not just in karakia, but also taki whakapapa as well, And back in the day, ki te whati, ki te hapa, ko tō upoko te utu. And so there were consequences, and you were going way back in the day, pre-European arrival. And Muri Rangaranga was one example. Muri Rangaranga was the tohunga that did Tū Tānekai when he was a baby. He was the tohunga that was called to Rangiuru to do his part of the karakia and also recite the whakapapa, and then of course found out, okay, we're doing someone else's whakapapa now. All right, and then once he did the other whakapapa, ka puta a Tū Tānekai. And then later on, he was called to do the tohi, the tohi ritual, where according to the history, he made a mistake in his karakia. You're not supposed to make mistakes. You're not supposed to break. The flow is supposed to stay. You can't mix up your words, bearing in mind that there's many karakia that are very, very similar. Okay? So, yeah, in a nutshell, if you made a mistake, ka mate koe. And whether it was the Atua that killed you off, or it was te hunga ora that were commanded by the Atua to kill you off. So a lot of us would know the story anyway, where Muri Rangaranga made a mistake. Whakaue noticed that mistake. Bearing in mind, there's two stories. The other story is that he got caught eating some berries. Hey. And but anyway, one of the other stories is that he made a mistake. So Whakaue grabbed him and drowned him in Lake Rotorua. Yeah, cut his arm off, cleaned the forearm up, drilled some holes in it, put a couple of carvings, put it around his son's neck. And that's the kōwau that he would play to Hinemoa. So, ko ngā rā o mua e rā. Inai nei, okay? And so, some do make mistakes, some do break, ka pai. I te o te ngāti o te kaupapa, me karakia noi ho te kai karakia. Me karakia noi ho te tohunga, okay? So, koira pia te hiurahi. Yeah, and we spoke about that in te matapunenga. What if one makes a mistake? What happens? 20 press-ups. Nah. $50 into the jar. But yeah, it's just to mainly protect yourself, look after yourself, and do a karakia over yourself at the start and at the end of the kaupapa. Ka pai.
Ka whakapui he Wānanga karakia, ka haere rā nei ki ngā tūrero.
Yeah, so he tikanga hei whai mā mātou. And Poutemara's tikanga I roto I te matapunenga, kia kaue whakaakongia ngā karakia kia mate rāno tō ruanuku. Okay? So, yeah. So whether we're able to establish a Wānanga karakia, is that what you're asking? Yeah, or do we just go to kura reo and learn? Yeah. Because one of the other things that our ruanuku said is that you can't just throw all of your karakia out to everyone, it'll become too common. Okay? Become too common. And then everyone's a tohunga, or no one's a tohunga anymore. Yeah. Because there are some dangerous kaupapa. And those particular kaupapa, I ngā rā o tua whakarere, only the men did those kaupapa because it was life-threatening. Pai? Ki te mate he tāne ka mate. Ki te mate he wahine, ko te iwi te rā ka mate. So that's one of the big reasons as to why these kaupapa only for the men, and these kaupapa, yep, the woman can have a part to play in those, because we're all about manaki tiaki, ngā wāhine mea tātou tamariki mokopuna. All right? So, and over the, and I think when our ruanuku passes, I think over the years since the establishment of our cohort, right through to now, I think we've been, kind of noticing people. And that's what they did back in the day. They would notice this fella, oh, geez, he's a gunner doing this. Oh, he's going to be in the whare makatea. Oh, this fella's he's a little scrapper. He's going to be in the whare tūtaua. Okay, oh, geez, pai ngā mahi a te kōtiro nei. She's going to be sent into te whare pora. Okay, so they noticed them from a young age, and then, of course, invited them into the particular whare wānanga or tua whakarere. And that's what we've been doing as well. We've been noticing people, thinking, oh, yeah, kapai. Yeah, I think you'll be right for our whare wānanga when that, eventually happens. And, so koira pia taku whakautu I tō pātai. So lest it becomes too common and everyone's a tohunga, or there's no more tohunga because it's just normal now. And taking into consideration those dangerous kaupapa where you could get zapped by the wāhi ngaro. But ko te tūmanako I whakautua tō pātai. Why, you want to jump in? Nah.
Pātai nora, just before we go over here, just to check somebody else over first, if not.
Vai, e pātai te ana. Hea ke te rerekētanga o te tohunga ki tā te poropiti.
Well, tohunga, e hari te mea he matakite he poropiti ei. So poropiti is a prophet, eh? Te kōti, koia te tehi, rua kēnana. And they could foretell. Matakite, taia nei e rāua e rātau rānei te whakawhitiwhiti kōrero. Ki te tehi ao kāre tāi ana e te tūtūwā. You know, prophets, especially those, the aforementioned prophets, you know, they could converse, they could foretell, foresee. There are some tohunga that don't have those abilities, there are some that do. And koira pia te rerekētanga, maybe this person is just a tohunga in reciting karakia, right, and needs the hand of the matakite. Come with me, okay, I'll do the mahi, you do the scene. Ka pai? A lot of tohunga do that. And it's just to make sure, ka pai kei te huarahi tika ahau. And then others can just do the whole lot by themselves. They can do the karakia and they can see what's happening. Okay? And you know, the place is crowded with Wairua. Places crowded with Wairua. Your kui and your koroua, they go to everything. Hey, they go to all the tangihanga, the poroporoaki. You know, a lot of them just follow you everywhere. Apparently my nan's standing right here. Ka pai? And she comes with me everywhere and she's telling everyone, come on, we go and watch my mokopuna. She's always with me. It's my nan that raised me, okay? Don't know where my koro is, but nan's always here. Yeah, and she's probably laughing right now. She's probably, rubbing my back or whatever. She's, you know, since way back when, right through to her death, right through to now, she's always been very proud of me, okay? So there's some people that can see that and some people that can't. And I think, you know, ko tēnei mea, ko te poropiti he mana nui tōna. Hey, so he has a big part to play in telling us what's happening, I suppose, or even she. Yeah, but koe rā noi ho tā koe mōhio nei mo te rerekētanga o te poropiti me te tohunga.
Couple more we wrap up. Ki awai, ki te aha, koe tuku ana o Karakia or Karakia, mehe, like, do you send it to somebody, are you sending it to something, your Karakia, or is that whakaora tāmitanga?
So
Colonized whakaora, like, send, you know, are you directing your karakia to a something? Or
Yep. Well, me, I summon the atua that are in on the kaupapa that have to do with this taonga, this whare. Okay, bearing in mind that if we're opening up a whare, there's quite a few. There's quite a few atua that are involved, and they all come in to the kaupapa. They already know that they're involved in the kaupapa, and then I think we all do the mahi together. I'm doing the physical, they're doing the spiritual. So, for instance, in a house, you got tāne, and then you got Mātauranga in there. Then you got rongo as well, and we would know ko tū ki te marae, ko rongo ki te whare, and other aspects as well. So, I think he paito pātai, but I think it's drawing in. It's drawing in a lot of those atua to help me with the kaupapa. E te tuki a ia hau tērā kaupapa, te whakatōnga o te Māori, te whakatuwhiratanga rāne o te whare, te tohinga o te pepe, o te tamaiti rāne. Yeah.
Tērā koe wera ngā mea reire kē i te inoi me.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people in here tonight, Anaha, and would you suggest that all of them could be able to do karakia without being tohunga?
Yep.
And so then the next question is about the reo. So some of the reo that are in sort of your realm of karakia are words, phrases or otherwise that normal people may not necessarily understand. And yet there are also pēnei tāu e korona mo te takutaku that you can do takutaku and they are understandable, like you did when you talked about protect me, protect my dog, protect my horse, etc., etc. So there is a space there, protect the warriors. There is a space there. There's a space there for everybody to be able to achieve karakia at a point.
Aye. And I think we do. You know, Scotty's. You know, he's awesome where he's composed very short karakia for us to do tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro. Hei, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai woho, kia tau wai, te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa hau mi e hui e, tāeki e. And one thing, even though it's very short, there's a lot of essence in that karakia. It's very general, which is awesome. And even though we don't mention any atua, the atua already know, that's me, I'm in there, ka pai? And they already come to the kaupapa anyway while you're reciting that karakia. One thing is to actually know what you're saying. Don't just say words, but actually get the translation of those words as well. And the translation is on Google. Hey, you just go tūtawa, and then it comes up with the translation. So we actually know what we're saying, and we're not just doing a little bit of lip service. and where there's no essence in your kupu. Hey, so that's one thing, is to actually understand what we're saying rather than just saying.
And you talked a little bit about Inga coming over, and obviously coming from Tahiti, whether we're talking about Karakia Māori, whether it was Karakia Asian, with what you've been in, I know Matai Māyus went over there. Is there similarities? Have you spoken to their Tohunga and Karakia Asian and all of those ones? Is there similarity or anything there? Do you share that knowledge and they go, well, what was it like when we were there? Out there?
Yeah. Unfortunately for our Tahitian whanaunga, they were done bad. Yeah. And, we kind of moan. And then you go to the other islands and you think, man, no, we're good. We're pretty good. Our reo was up there. Our belief system is still here. We've reclaimed it, and then it's becoming revived, I suppose. And I suppose it's getting stronger and stronger, as we're connecting back to ngā Atua Māori. But you go to Samoa, Tonga, Rarotonga, and it's nothing. You're not even to mention all that stuff. They've been put into the archive file, and the cabinet's been closed, and so I think we're in a good space anyway with that. And how hai nei tō pātai, bro? Yeah.
It was just interesting, like Tohunga, whether you go like we're doing that with our navigators and that coming to get and sharing that, but again with Karakia.
Yeah, so when I last went to Hawaii ki tumu te Warawaro, which is Rarotonga, we heard that there was a cohort of people who were wanting to revive Atua Mauri in Rarotonga. And we heard that they nearly got booted off the island. Yeah, okay. Tahiti, so 2017, went to Raiatea, where according to one kōrero, that's where the waka left from. Okay, and they knew very little. So we go back to 1985 perhaps. I haere Ngāti Rangi Wewehi ki Raiatea, Rangiatea Rane. So that's in Tahiti. And as we're trying to figure out where Hawaii is, one of our Hawaii takes us back to Tahiti, in particular Raiatea. And unfortunately, their people didn't know any of the kōrero, so Irirangi takes over. And he starts doing the kōrero. He went on a helicopter ride. And in accordance with a map that he knew, he was, there's koira te maunga e kia nei ko mea, koira te awa e kia nei ko mea. So he was actually the kai kōrero, not the Tahitians. All right, in the 90s, Rua Mata goes over to Raiatea. Korohiko takes over. Unfortunately, they didn't have their kōrero. So the kōrero that was given to us is that when the French got there, they, through colonization, they got rid of a lot of their tikanga, a lot of their stories, a lot of their artifacts were burnt, buried, taken out to the ocean. So a generation or two afterwards would not even know a lot of the history. So they were done real bad. Okay, the Tahitians. So to answer your question there, Carl, we haven't got to speak to any Tohunga Tahiti.
Yeah. Just ask that too, because I see that they're going to have Matarike and Solitude coming up too.
Yeah, that's in November.
It's going to be rangi mā going over to go, well, what you do.
Yeah, so, and yet to talk a bit to Rangi about that too, because I'm wanting to go over in November. So Tahiti establishing their own Matariki Day, public holiday in November. So they'll have a hautapu there, and trying to suss that out to go over as well.
Do Tohunga get paid?
No. Yeah. No. And not just Tohunga Karakia, Tohunga Tohi, Whakairo, Raranga, painters, kapai, all these particular Tohunga, very appreciative, if we get a koha. Yeah, if we get a koha. But, there are a lot that just expect, he knows the karakia, he can do it. But what within the koha e te whānau, and don't ever expect the koha, and, and there's even a clash there when someone gives me a koha, I say, nā kei te poe, nā. But there's a clash there because it's whakaaro Māori to give a koha, and it's takahi, and it's a takahi to not accept the koha. Yeah, do you get that? Yeah, so it's Māori to receive koha as well. So when I'm saying, nā kei te pai, put it in your kid's pocket or whatever, and then they put it in my pocket or whatever, it's just, there's just a little bit of a clash there. don't ever expect koha. But what you do, within the aroha of your koha, you kind of, I shouldn't say pay, but it contributes to all of the time that we were away from in the whare makatea. All those grueling weekends with our ruanuku, because it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. All the time away from our tamariki, ka pai. Because, there's a kōrero that says if you work late, 10 years later, there's only one type of people that will remember that you worked late, and it's your tamariki. Your boss not going to remember in 10 years' time that you worked late. And then, so that's what you kind of contribute to, is that the time that these people have spent, the hours, the love that they've put into their kaupapa to present to you, to help your whānau, your kaupapa and whatever. So you don't, people, I do a kaupapa and people go, can you send us an invoice? I says, cool, that's far out. Nah, that's not even a thing. You don't send an invoice for karakia Tawhito. And we just need it's just for the books. I said, nā, kei a koutou. If you give me something, kei te pai. If you don't, kei te pai. So that's a hard one, for me. But then, of course, he takahi tikanga mena kāre pōhiri tia te koha.
Why, I watched you one day when you opened the house, somewhere, I remember where, but I saw it on the screen, you had either a kawakawa tutu branch in your hand, son.
Yeah.
You went around, bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
I like peanut butter sandwiches, so let's not the
kawakawa has always, for some reason, been the branch. Like te rākau tū matarau, that's like the Harry Potter wizard stick. And it's been the most favoured right from when they came here. I don't think they've got kawakawa over in Tahiti. But when they got here, for some reason, Ngā Tōrōrangi grabbed that kawakawa and he started using it. And then, of course, ka heke iho kia tātou. So I can't actually give you the reason as to why. But you have a look in Wahiao, the kāwina of Ngā Tōrōrangi, he's holding a kawakawa. Okay? And so there's still some things that we have to research. Me myself, my mates are probably watching this going, what an amateur. It's because of this. You didn't listen. That was Wānanga number 20. You didn't listen. So, but tēnā koe tēnā pātai aku. It's, and a lot of things, even through tikanga, it's through osmosis. We watch, we learn, we listen, we don't ask any questions, and we just do the thing, which is okay sometimes, not always a good thing. But, that's what we've learned through seen throughout the years, all the different tohunga with their kawakawa branch. It's said that's the magic wand of the tohunga, the kawakawa.
Wai tā mai koe me tō rau kawakawa I te pōna e hoa. Wai mari ana tēnei hunga, ai te āhuatanga tō kōrero. Moe nei kōrero, ka rangona ētahi kaua tētai hunga pēnei tēnei te rahi. Wera, no mātou te waimaria, i a koe, ka mutu I ngā koro I pute I a koe tēnei pō. Just want to say that I think as we sit here tonight, albeit this is probably one of the biggest forums I think that we can ever sit around and have the opportunity to listen to our own, talk about the stuff they do, that we're hugely fortunate to have him firstly here, number two, to deliver his kōrero that will be a lot of kōrero that many of us haven't heard before, and fourthly, to have an opportunity to question and ask as well. So, me pēnei rawa te kōrero ka nui te mihi kia koe anaha mo nā Mātauranga I tukuna mai ai ki tēnei whakaminenga, tēnei wānanga. Ko te waimaria I wātea koe ki te tuku I te kōrero. E hari te mei here koe, kao, I māma noa ke tō tuku I te kōrero. So, koe te mihi o te ngākau kia koe tēnei pō. Thank you to you for being here tonight. Thank you all of us being here tonight, but before, just want to finish up with some quick pānui. Mai te paki mo tō tātou kai kōrero.